A new semester is here, and with that comes an opportunity to make changes to your classroom. But where's the best place to start?
It's time to hit the reset button and get inspired with some teacher tested tips. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Some Shenanigans, a series designed to provide you with tangible teaching tips that you can implement in your classroom. My name is Bri. I am one of your co hosts today, and I am joined by my awesome co host.
And I'm Adam Varnes, a professional learning specialist here at CPM, just like Bree, and we're excited to be here with another episode for you.
Yeah. And this is a special episode because it is the beginning of a new semester. So many of us have just gotten back from a long break. We've gotten to rest, relax, rejuvenate, all of the things.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, right? And we're back at it with a new semester, right? So today we're going to be sharing some tips to support you with a smooth start as you jump right into that new semester. What are some new things that you can try? What are some new thing or some things that you can take from the first semester and hopefully build on? That's what we're going to be focusing on today. Love that. So we have new beginnings, right? A fresh semester. You just got off of a break. Hopefully, you're feeling some excitement to jump back in your classroom, see your students, and get started with the next semester. So, today we're going to be talking about some tips to support you as you transition into that second semester. We keep saying semester, but I know some teachers used um, quarter systems, trimesters. You're jumping back into your classroom after a long break. What are your next steps? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Adam, I'm going to let you kick us off. You're back into your classroom. What are some of the things that come to mind? What are some of the things you wish you did after you got back from a long break to start off the next semester?
So, the first thing that came to mind when we knew we were going to talk about this topic was collaboration. And we've talked a lot about in our prior episodes about the importance of collaboration, having students work in teams, work together on those problems, those math problems that are hopefully contextual, real world based. And so for me, usually it happens around October. But some years I was able to make good, keep good collaboration until the end of the semester. But if you think about collaboration, right, especially once that calendar flips over to December, the focus really turns to finals, especially at the high school level, right?
Yeah.
So students are focused on finals, which is a pretty much a individual endeavor, right? So there's a lot of focus on what do I need to learn to get ready. And then we go on a 2, sometimes 3 week break. And so by the time we've started that new semester, students haven't been collaborating and it can take a while. It almost feels like the beginning of the school year where you have to rebuild those collaborative routines, re-emphasize those procedures. So my tip for starting a new semester is to re-engage with the collaboration and whatever those procedures and kind of processes were in your classroom, re-engage in those and highlight those. Let's be honest, that first day back from break, we're probably not doing much math learning, so to speak, right? Everybody's coming off break. We're kind of getting in the rhythm, getting the routine again.
Yeah.
So I think that was a perfect time to do some sort of icebreaker, do some sort of team building activity. Not only what does it kind of get everybody back in the routine and back in the flow of being in the classroom, but it kind of emphasizes those collaborative procedures. So that would be my teacher tip. When you come back, again, refocus, re-highlight a lot of those collaboration routines that hopefully you had worked on and kind of get students reacclimated with those.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really important. Um, you know, after semester, like you said, these are probably routines that you've spent a lot of time on and which is an investment. And I think it's important to bring the class back and just give students time to practice those things again and also remind them that these routines and collaboration in general is something that's important and part of the math learning process, part of the problem solving process. And we need to be reminded of those things, right? I think about all of the sort of back to the emails that I get even just at the beginning of the semester from administration or, other teachers. I don't know, just reminders of what's in place, what we tend to forget about after the ins and outs of every day. So, yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing. I'm curious, what's one way that you might, um, spend time in class? You mentioned icebreakers as one idea, but what's another way you might get students to reconnect with, the importance of collaboration in your class?
Well, I was always a fan of activities, that ideally they have some math to it, right? So there it's not just a complete fun day and things like that. Um, I've done everything from I would do Jeopardy games and Family Feud, to kind of, recall that prior knowledge, like sneakily, recall that
Yeah,
prior knowledge after the 2-week break. But there's also fun, like, in our CPM course, Integrated 3, we have a yarn activity where students try to create,
yeah.
I forget the exact length of the yarn. Was it 5 feet, 6 feet,
I
something like that?
think it's 8 feet.
8 feet, okay. So there's a predetermined length of yarn that students are using, and they're trying to create these three-dimensional shapes, right? And so they're trying to, so that's always a fun one too. And really, yes, I'm reintroducing and re-highlighting the collaboration, but it also gives me another anchor point, for, the rest of the semester. And what I mean by that is, it gives me a point of reference. So when students are coming in and maybe they're quiet or they're not working as well, collaborating as well, I can always, recall that anchor point and say, hey, I know you can work together because I've seen you. You did it during this activity and you did it during, with these, that team building activity. So I know it's possible, right? So it's just another anchor point, another reference point, when you need to pull that when on those days where they're not collaborating as much as they usually do.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think the rope activity is a really good one, because it's an experience too, and it's always experiences are really, like, I think important to like, common experiences, right? Really give you
Mhm.
something to anchor on that, students remember, so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I love that, and actually, I think, Adam, we're on a similar wavelength because, my tip I'll go ahead and jump in with my tip, was to take time to revisit team building and team support as if it were the beginning of the school year,
Yep.
and so, um you know, I think that, fresh starts are always important, especially for students who may have had a tough first semester.
Mhm.
And, we know those students, and you might have had a student, it was tough on their end, but it was also tough on your end as a teacher, connecting with that student, supporting those students. Um, so I think that doing activities like icebreakers that sort of become community connectors, um, give students a chance to walk into the classroom, like, with their full selves and just have a little bit of fun, um, laugh a little bit, contribute, right? And those things create those spaces for students to feel heard and seen. Um, and I think that ultimately can support students in feeling like they have a fresh start, right? Um, and I think too, as teachers, we also need to be proactive in reflecting on, um, our relationships with students, and those, relationships, we do need to actively remind ourselves that as teachers too, it is important for us to reflect on which students, we may have had a trickier relationship with, we weren't able to connect with as much, so that we can be intentional at the beginning of the semester to sort of let go of those things on our end, provide that fresh start, um, and then move forward, right? So you mentioned icebreakers. Those are important for breaking the ice, but any activity that can, I like to call them community connectors. That's a term I learned this year, because at this point, students know each other. Well, you think they would, right?
Yeah.
But
We're hoping.
right, you hope, right? But, like, that, I just love that language of, like, taking the already existing community and strengthening it, connecting in different ways. Those activities are great, but also, like, get back to your door questions. If those are something that you started at the beginning of the year and aren't doing as much, those door questions are a great way, again, to just connect on a non-math level, just on a human
Mhm.
level, um, so that hopefully students will feel comfortable, and feel seen and heard in your math classroom. Um, let's
I've thought of another one. The other one, I was like, "There's another activity I used to do all the time, and the kids had fun with it." It was categories. So I
Oh,
had a list of different things like, something mathematical, book, movie, things like that, and then I
mhm.
would just choose that. You can just Google search, random letter generator, and the kids had always had fun with that, and you get some interesting answers, some answers that were like, that's borderline acceptable, in terms of fitting the category, not
Yeah.
that they were, um, being inappropriate. But that was another one, categories. So that one always seemed to go over well.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. It
but I love the point that you made about um, like just kind of letting go of that first semester and letting go of how that student was and all that difficulty that may have been. Um, I connect with that because I taught mostly freshmen, and so I could see also a little kind of relation also with maybe sixth graders, but it's those students that are newer to the campus. So the sixth graders are newer to the middle school, typically, right? Those freshmen are typically newer to the high school,
Yeah,
and there's an acclimation period. There's a transition period where they're transitioning from elementary to middle or middle to high school, and so sometimes it can take a semester. But I've had instances where freshmen may be quiet during that first semester, and then they come back from break and they're a completely different
yeah.
student, way more engaging, way more collaborating. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, that struck a chord when you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. I I can think of so many students. That's interesting that you say freshmen because that's the or that's the group of students I thought of immediately. Um, because I mean, integrated 1, right? Algebra 1 is a class where those ninth grade classes are very crucial classes, right? That they can even determine like a student's math pathway in the future. So I think that extra just time and care is really, really important. And like you said, students are maturing, and they might make tremendous growth the second semester. They might have just had a tough first semester. So um, that's always, I think, really important and something we have to be intentional about because it's easier to say outside of the classroom and when you're not, you know, when you're not in the weeds, right? So, yeah.
Right.
So just to kind of summarize just what we just kind of went over, reconnecting with collaboration at the beginning of the year, those collaboration expectations, routines is really important to remind students of what we value in in our math community, right? And those community connectors, right? Um, just providing space for students to be themselves, feel comfortable in our classrooms before diving in, that they can make a huge difference.
All right. Did you have any other advice for teachers as they kind of start the new semester and think about as they kind of reflect on how that previous semester went?
Yeah. So I started thinking of um just sort of my own goals outside the classroom. And it's the beginning of the school year. And I am trying to just take better care of myself. I think a lot of people at the beginning of the year want to try to be healthier, and want to set goals for themselves. And I was thinking about a conversation that I had with a nutritionist I had been working with in the last year. And when we started off, her approach with me wasn't like, um, I had to try new things, but she was trying not to fire hose me with like, you need to try this, try that, try implement this new thing. A lot of what we talked about when we first met was my current habits and maybe identifying my habits and what habits need to be adjusted. And I started thinking about the habits that we build in the classroom. And after a full semester, you start to, I mean, as teachers, we wanna build routine, that's really important, right? But as we build those routines, I think we build habits too, and I was thinking about some of the habits that we easily fall into, and that led me to circulation and generally where we are in the classroom. Um, I think that if we aren't intentional with our circulation, we can easily build habits. And what that can look like, I can think of my own classroom spending a ton of time with one team um, over the other teams, sometimes even spending extra time with particular students. We don't realize that. I remember when I remember sometimes when I was talking to my own administration or CPM coaches who are in my classroom, and they're like, "Do you realize how much time you spent at this one group, or do you realize how many times you called on this particular student?" So anyway, all that to say, my tip would be to revisit your circulation path. I think that is one space. Circulation is just like one place where we can always level up and be a little more intentional. And so some ways that you can do it. One, ask someone to come into your classroom and map out your circulation path. Or ask them to time out how much time you spend with certain teams. It is eye-opening. You don't realize it, but just like when someone timestamps your lesson and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I spent that much time on this problem." Um, just seeing where you're at in the classroom, um, and learning about how much time you spend somewhere is really, really eye-opening. Um, I wanted to share some language that I just recently learned, to describe teachers' locations in the classroom, which I thought was interesting. So we can link the reference below, but these 4 different spaces I thought were interesting. So, how much time are we spending in authoritative space? That would be in front of the classroom, right? We also have our own personal space, right? That might be behind your desk. Um, supervisory s- supervisory space might be between rows of desks. We also have interactional space, which might be next to students' desks. So I would encourage you to think about how much time you're spending in one of those 4 locations, throughout your
Is there a fancy acronym for those?
Oh my gosh. What? APSI, authoritative,
APSA.
supervisory, or interactional.
Okay.
So nothing fancy, not that I know of, but I thought that breakdown is really, really interesting. That could vary from day to day, or, we also build habits. So if you already like know that you spend a lot of time in one space, ask yourself why and ask yourself if an adjustment needs to be made. Um, so yeah, that's my second tip is, revisit your circulation and, see how you can adjust it, see how much time you're spending in certain spaces. You can also visit one of CPM's newsletters. There's a great article on the 3-pass promise, which, I think we're gonna dive into a little deeper in a different episode when we talk about circulation, but that is a great strategy for intentional circulation, the 3-pass promise.
Yeah. I think I think for the purposes of, we can dive into it a little bit here, but just like the general overview, like as Bree was mentioning, because this is what I was gonna follow up, because that's where my mind went was circulation, was that 3-pass promise. It just the first pass the first time you walk around the classroom, you're just making sure that everybody has the necessary materials. They've got the books, they've got their notebooks, things like that. That pass is done pretty quickly. The second pass is also done quickly, but it's more has every group started the problem. So somebody's reading, or they're already diving into the problem, things like that. And then every third pass and beyond, that's where we're going to be more intentional about questions that we're asking, assistance that we're providing, things like that. That's a general overview, but like Bree said, we'll do a deeper dive into that in a future episode.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Um, so yeah, that's my second tip. Adam, what about you? What do you got for us?
Well, so you brought up that interesting the idea of habits, right? And we get into those habits. And I think one of the things about habits in general is, we get into them and they become so comfortable, we don't want to change,
Yeah.
or we don't feel like there's a right opportunity to change. So, kind of using that as a bridge between your tip and my tip, um, is one of the things I consistently did every semester was reflect on my grading. Specifically, like, I'm always making changes to my grading. I'm just one of those like every semester, but like it's hard to do that mid-semester because you've committed to a grading scale, you've committed to the types of assessments you're going to give, what you're going to grade, what you're not going to grade, things like that. So it's hard to do that mid-semester.
Wow.
So I always found that January semester, this as the spring starts, as a nice time to be like, you know what, this did not work in the fall, and I'm going to make the change. I'm not going to wait for the rest of the school year to be over. I'm just going to jump in and change. And that could be, anything from, I've reflected on utilizing team challenges or team tests as part of the grade. And then in January, I just did not like how that was going. So in January, I stopped doing it. Um, I also went from, giving one quiz every maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks to quizzing every single week,
Mhm.
right? Things like that, where it just reflects. I just took that time to reflect on my practice about grading and always felt like, why wait till the end of the semester, or I'm sorry, to the end of the school year if I already know it's not working, I'm already not happy with it. So that's just me for grading. But, as it ties to what Bri was saying about habits, find, just be brave, be bold about something. If it's not working, if it's something you're not happy with, change it, make the change. And I think that new semester that, whenever it is, fall or spring, whenever that new semester is, it's a perfect time to go ahead and be brave, be bold, and make that change.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta to move forward, right? That also makes me think too that reflecting as a department or as a PLC is really important, and sitting down and asking yourself as a team, what is working for our student population, what isn't, and what do we need to change immediately is yeah, an important question that we should be thinking about beyond our classrooms too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Alrighty. Well, as we wrap up this episode, again, Brie and I talked about some best tips and strategies as you start a new semester. So our first piece of advice, both of us, both Brie and I, both really centered around the collaboration and the importance of collaboration, the importance of that refocus, and making sure that we highlight and utilize community connectors, icebreakers, team building activities, things like that to really welcome students back, get them back in the flow, and again, to really re-emphasize the importance of collaborating. Bree followed up by, asking or recommending that you refocus on circulation. So think about, the number of times and the amount of time that you spend at a group, your path, get feedback from a colleague. Bree, do you mind going over those spaces again? I've already forgotten.
Yes, absolutely. So we have authoritative space that's in front of your classroom, personal space, this could be behind your desk or anywhere just in your own space, supervisory space, that would be between rows of desks, and interactional space next to students' desks. So those last two are very similar. But yeah, those are the four spaces that you might want to consider.
Awesome. Thank you for recapping that. My internal storage has kind of reached its capacity at this time of the year. And then the last thing Bree and I discussed was, just about being brave and bold, thinking about what are those habits that you may have gotten into, but something's not working. Be brave, be bold, make the change, and that new semester is a great time to do it. Uh, did I capture everything?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And speaking of storage, beginning of the year might be a good time to clean out your inbox, um, your drive, right?
Yeah.
So you can start. So you're starting
Yeah.
fresh. So
There we go. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us at another episode of Some Shenanigans. As a reminder, please hit that subscribe button. Keep this conversation going by leaving down what are some of your best practices for a new semester, new trimester, new quarter, things like that. These fresh starts that we get throughout the school year. What are some of your best pieces of advice? Go ahead and drop those in the comments. Hit that like button and continue to follow along with us on our journey here.
all right. Thanks for joining us, y'all. We'll see you
All
next
right.
time.
See you on the next one.